from my side, I'm trying to improve the way in which I deliver the core message in a very simple, concise way.
Maria, already you're familiar with Cashbox because you've been working with us, and
yeah.
So Kelly, how much do you know about us so far?
Well, only what Maria has kindly shared with me, and from yesterday's conversations with Viviana. But what I understand so far, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you're a solutions company focused on bringing internet access to remote areas, to all areas actually. And thinking about Latin America and the profile we have here in the region, I thought about accessibility and infrastructure that's lacking in a lot of places in Brazil, and without access to the internet, without being able to connect online, people are at a real disadvantage. So I was really interested to see if I'm correct in my understanding,
you're very
and
close.
to learn more.
You're very close, and I suppose actually there was a comment made in the Viviana's call with me the other day, and somebody from the innovations team at the ministry, who I've worked with some years ago, and then the pandemic intervened, and they didn't have budget to do things and all sorts of things. But he said a very interesting thing. He said, I really understand your technology. It's about making more efficient use of whatever internet connection you can get. So Kelly, you used some words there which didn't tell me you were absolutely clear that we're not actually providing connectivity, but as in the connection. We're helping people to make a lot more value out of whatever connection's available.
Okay, good.
So
no, I didn't get to that level of discernment. Yeah, but good to know.
But this gentleman from the innovation team, he says he drew a very, very interesting parallel, which I hadn't thought of before. He said every government in the world is aware in the energy space that there are two separate things you've got to do. You've got to generate energy, and energy capacity has got to be increased as your country develops, and you've got to have energy efficiency. You've got to use that energy efficiently. Why aren't we doing that with schools connectivity? I thought that's actually a very, very apt comparison.
Brilliant, yeah.
And in effect, that's what we're doing. We're bringing this, which is allowing schools in Ecuador to use an absolutely tiny internet connection to do whole class e-learning with 40 students all accessing online video and things you'd normally expect would use a lot of bandwidth, but with our technology means you use it more efficiently. So
that's actually really smart, because then you don't have to actually put in the infrastructure, or you're just amplifying whatever's there.
Exactly.
and making it accessible for educational purposes, or whatever other purposes probably too, no? Or just indeed. You focus on education.
Yeah, well, education has a very particular traffic that's generated by teaching and learning. If you just imagine, Kelly, you're in a class and you've got 40 students, and you say to them, could you all go to the internet and open this ebook or PDF or video? That's 40 people fetching the same thing at the same time. There aren't many environments that generate the same thing at the same time. And our technology is all about deduplicating. So we fetch it once and then share it to the other 39 students.
Nice.
Where if you were in your street at home, I live in a rural part, as Patrick does, where we don't have lots of bandwidth. And if you're in your street at home and you go and, I don't know, you choose to read a news story or watch a YouTube video or whatever, your next door neighbor might be doing something completely different. In a school, they're all doing the same thing at the same moment. And that's why our technology makes a huge difference in schools, more than it does in any other environment. Having said that, we've got some really good customers who have teaching and learning environments, corporate, like Royal Caribbean cruise ships.
Oh, like, on the ships, they need
all the
help
staff
too. Yeah,
hundreds of staff with a tiny internet connection trying to do their professional development, their health and safety or whatever it might be. You take on 3,000 crew in Manila, and you've got to teach them the basics of how to keep safe on a ship and look after the customers. So there are lots of things like that in fact, the technology that we use was invented at the same time as the internet. The idea was that if you are in a school in Sao Paulo and you want to watch a YouTube video, it was never intended that you would make the request to the internet and it would go up to Silicon Valley and then you'd fetch the video back to you. It was always that you'll ask your ISP who's got a copy of it, or if they haven't, they'll ask their ISP, who will ask another
And share.
ISP, and you'd have these little, they're called caches.
Connections. Okay.
They're called caches. So it's a little store of internet objects right across the internet, and that's how the internet was founded. And ISPs are very familiar with the technology, but they've not made it attractive for schools. And you know, they want to sell bandwidth. They want to sell bandwidth to the schools and everybody else. So they haven't made what we call last mile caching widely available. And that's what we've done. We've spent 20 years doing it, and we're good at it. But the reason why we're talking to you is because there's lots of things we're not good at. And part of that, as Maria will tell you, is that we don't have a Portuguese speaker in our business right now. We have had in the past, but we don't have right now. So, and we know, and Claudia amplified this on our call the other day, we know that in some countries in Latin America, we can get away with not having everything translated into Spanish, not having a Spanish speaker on some of our calls. We do have Spanish speakers based in our US team. But in Brazil, it's very difficult to do that. You're kind of expected to have Portuguese speakers and to have all your collaterals. Our product is written in Portuguese. So if you're a technical administrator, you know, one of these networky guys who's looking after the box, his interface, you can choose Portuguese as a language in it. But telling you about it, me or Patrick, Patrick has some Portuguese, I have none. And therefore we have now identified a partner in Brazil, a distributor who's going to help us with that side of things.
That's really good, actually. I think that's going to be tremendously helpful. And where's this distributor
I don't
based?
have details yet. I only heard yesterday that it's in the pipeline.
Cool.
But as soon as I've had an introduction, I'll give you a call and arrange to have a meetup.
And may I ask if your technology, is it hardware, is it software, is it both? Yes,
it's a combination called an appliance. So when you turn it on, it is already a cache
booster.
box.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it does its job. So it's a little device that sits inside every school.
One per school.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's what's called a network appliance. So you only need one for the whole network. So your little laptop has got some little tiny bit of cache storage in it. So if you go to a web page and then you go to another web page and come back to your first web page, it'll remember some of the things on the page. So you have a tiny amount. But what we've got is a big cache, which means one person can go to a web page and another person can get the same web page.
Oh, okay. Well, that's very different from, I think, technology that I know, right? Because we all know how hard it is, even in our homes, even in the big city like São Paulo, to be able to get the best from your internet connection from your living room to your bedroom. And you know, there's some devices that help boost the signal, but what your device does is actually it replicates the content that's already cached so that everybody can share it, and that's quite different.
Yeah, the really clever bit, Kelly, and the bit that gets me excited, and Maria smiles very nicely when I get excited. The bit that's really exciting is that the most transformative every school system in the world is trying to transform the learning outcomes of students to get them 21st century skills by doing what we call the most transformative e-learning. And the most transformative e-learning is not changing textbooks into PDFs. That's very low on the transformative scale. You're just substituting textbooks for digital textbooks. The really transformative stuff is allowing students to study on their own device. So they're now in charge of their own content and learning. They drive their own learning. So it's called independent learning in English. It's student-centered learning as well, whereas instead of having a teacher standing at the front of the class telling everybody what to learn, everybody's finding their own way to content and they're consuming it at their own pace. So if you give a whole class of 40 students a video, some children will go straight through it. Others will want to stop, rewind it, play that bit again, make some notes, go at their own pace. And it's been proven that that delivers better learning outcomes. So the first ingredient is video and other media-rich content, which uses a lot of bandwidth. The second ingredient is doing it on your own device, doing it at your own speed. And the third ingredient is learning metrics. Now, learning metrics, how are students engaged? How well are they doing? Are they answering questions? Real-time metrics about student. Now, that means you have to have an internet connection. And there's a whole load of clever stuff goes on the servers up in the internet, driven by AI and clever capabilities, which tell the teacher how students are doing. They tell the school how that teacher in the class is doing, and they tell the Ministry of Education or the Department of Education how that module is going and how schools are coping with it, and so that they can target their interventions. It's basically in schools called monitoring and intervention here in the UK. In our schools, we talk about monitoring and intervention, M&E. And getting that data enables the education system, the central people working in the department, to take action, to make things better. So when you add those three ingredients together, you need a lot of internet connection. But what our box does is really clever. It says, hang on, this is Maria logging in. That's her authentication. That needs to go up to the central servers so the central server knows that it's her. So our little box says, oh, hang on a second, that's Maria authenticating. She's doing her login. Don't send this to cache. Don't serve this from cache. Send that to the internet, but it's tiny, absolutely tiny. And then Maria says, right, I want to load that page. But we've already got that page, so we serve that locally. So the cache determines we've already got it. And then she accesses a video, and the cache box says, oh, no, we've already got that. Kelly had that a minute ago. So here you are, Maria, here's the video. And then Maria answers a question about it, and the answer goes to the central servers, because the cache box is sifting everything and working out what can we serve locally. It's really clever. And it's not a dumb replication system, it's a very clever replication system, and that's what we've had.
It's almost like trying to be intuitive, right?
Yeah, but it's actually predicting, because we look at the content. So when Ecuador Ministry of Education said to us, this is our national platform, forgive my Spanish pronunciation, but they call it recursos, something like that. So recursos, and we had a look at it, and we worked out how to tell the cache box what to do, how to recognize whether it was login data, whether it was metrics, whether it was content that can be shared. So we wrote a bunch of rules to tell the cache boxes what to do with
how to sift through the information.
Exactly. And there are a bunch of other things that we do as well within the box, and I'm not going to talk to you about those today. I'm going to talk to you about the problems that we have and where Maria and the team were planning a strategy for how they could help us to overcome those problems.
Great.
One of them is we don't know what's going on in Brazil, and you do.
Yeah.
We will have a distributor now, and that's going to be very helpful.
Super helpful.
But if we take Chile as an example, the guys from the innovation teams have absolutely understand what we're talking about, this efficiency thing. They get that they can accelerate the journey that they plan to take 10 years. They can accelerate it, they can save money, but they have no money now to do a trial. And I was talking to the folks in London, DIT London, various different departments. We're trying to piece together our understanding of how your enormous organization all fits together and who does what. And we're looking to you for help for that too. And they were saying, well, there are pots of money that are available. Sometimes FCDO has Foreign and Commonwealth Development, FCDO has some access to some money. Sometimes they're aware of NGOs and other development funds that might be available to do pilots, but specifically to do pilots where it's trying to prove a concept. We're doing work with World Bank in Senegal, but they might be more focused on rollout, and it might be somebody else, an NGO like GIZ or somebody who has got a small amount of money for a specific purpose. And that would help the ministry to do something in this next budget cycle when otherwise they might not be able to do something. So even though they're keen, it doesn't mean they can do something. And therefore, pulling all these threads together is something we know DIT are going to be able to at least point us in the right direction, sometimes introduce us to people. I think one of your counterparts, it might have been Viviana. No, it wasn't Viviana. I think it was the gentleman in Bolivia, Martin in Bolivia, said, I could organize a breakfast meeting. Because they're more likely to come. Oh, great, because we can't very easily do that. And then when we get folks from Brazil coming over here to the Education World Forum, the London team said, if you let us know, we can take them to the House of Lords, we can show them around, we can host and give them hospitality, and we set up meetings and tying all that together along with the outreach program that we were talking to Maria about. We've had some videos made and some collaterals put into Portuguese that Maria's team helped us put together, and we were going to do an outreach program because we'd had quite a few people came to your event and showed interest in what we were doing, but we hadn't got the materials ready. And then you had an election, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, recently.
Right.
Yeah.
All that's done now, hopefully.
Yeah, but the election was done, but they haven't taken office yet.
Okay.
So I'm not sure how much Maria has shared with you, but it's good to understand where you're at. And I understand from this conversation that your priority is Brazil right now, right? Strategically, Brazil, you're investing in headcount here and a partner, not a headcount, but a partner to help you expand here in Brazil.
There are several. I mean, our technology is I think important for UK exports generally, ed tech exports, because there are some fantastic platforms that are put together in the UK.
But you're the platform that is going to enable the other ones.
So we're opening up the market, and therefore we're very keen. Because implementing something like our technology or any of those ed technologies is a several-year cycle. We want to find the countries now who will do a pilot, because we know that's the first step. It might just be one school. It might be 10 schools. It might be in one country in Senegal, we're doing 280 schools with World Bank funding for a pilot, which is fantastic. But it's not always like that. It's often 5 schools, 10 schools, or 1. So we want to find as many countries who will get started now on something small, knowing that that will lead to things in the future. And then because we can open, even just by talking to them, we can open their eyes. There are countries who are thinking we'll never be able to do e-learning in our schools in the next decade. Chile is planning over 10 years to reach the point where the US was in 2020 in terms of back per student. So 10 years to get to a quarter of where the US was in 2020. I mean, with our technology, they can do it in 2 months.
Well, I think this is actually really good timing, because what's happening now in Brazil in politics, and I understand from our conversation that you're very focused on government too, right? So what's happening now is we had the election, as you know, and now January 1st, all these people take office. So what happens is within this huge structure that you're getting to learn more about, how the UK government functions abroad, is that we have several teams, the development team, we have the political team, and everybody is working to either start new conversations or grow conversations from the past with these people who are entering office right now on January 1st. So, for example, we're already putting a brief together to talk to the Secretary of Education of São Paulo. We have, for example, we're strategizing how to approach the Minister of Education in Brasilia. So right now we're in this, at this time, these nominations are still coming in. Every day there's breaking news on who's going to be this, who's going to be that, other than the governor and the people who are elected, we know. but the people who they're going to nominate for
Right.
these other positions, that's still being defined. So I would believe that January will be a month where we are talking to these key stakeholders, that we're getting to open relationships with them, or even actually continue relationships that we had in the past. But I think, as you mentioned, your technology, and every time Maria makes a presentation, right, in terms of what the UK has to offer, she includes education technologies in this. And your product is also included in her presentation. But I think it's a good point in our messaging when we're talking to these key stakeholders to say exactly what you said, Roger, that your technology enables and support other technologies, not only British, but whatever the local needs would be for that educational system. So I think the timing, the support, I think your tool, your solution is a very unique one. So it's easy for us to be able to talk to you and to talk about your product with the people we have relationships with. And I think having that distributor here at that moment when we are looking at the possibilities, we're opening these new doors, or and we start taking the British companies along with us for those conversations, to have somebody that speaks Portuguese, that's a local distributor. Because another thing, they don't like paying in foreign currency, right? They like to be able to pay locally and in Brazilian reais. I think it's perfect timing. And I think this is a good time for us to be strategizing about this. And I know you've been talking to Maria for a while. She has her hands up. I'm sure she wants to contribute something. But I think this is the timing we are right now in terms of the work we're doing. There are a lot of initiatives ongoing that are happening. For example, there's a team here, the infrastructure team, that's helping build schools in the northeast of Brazil. You're going to need your solution there, hopefully, right? To be able um, eh, to make that school work after it's built. So there's a lot of things going on, but I think what I can say is that this is good timing because we're starting some really good conversations and relationships right now, and we can include you in those conversations.
Right.
Maria?
Yeah, just to quickly mention that in the past, with engaged with the Ministry of Education, you've met them during BET last year, and they are, even though, as Kelly very well mentioned, we are not sure who the ministry is going to be, all the people in there, but they have shown us the deep desire to go to BET this year again, EWF. So we're hoping to secure meetings and, of course, facilitate those engagements in the UK. So Kelly and I and another person from the team will be in London in March. So we can definitely let you know of any government representatives that are attending. And I think something that is key is, of course, federal level is where we have the volume, and it's where you work in other countries in the region. But due to Brazil, immense size and population and schools, it's very interesting maybe to suggest state governments, because we know they do have a massive number of students and schools, and they're oftentimes easier to work with in terms that, of course, we need to engage with the ministry, but it takes a long time, and maybe a pilot in a state can be much easier and have a big impact on showing that you have already not only success cases in the region, such as Ecuador, but also in Brazil. So this, I think, will make a difference for the ministry. And for example, here in São Paulo, that is the biggest state in terms of investment and student numbers. We have a new secretary for education that is very keen on working with EdTech. He knows a lot. He's connected with the private sector. So he's very keen to make those partnerships. And I think that may be a very interesting entry point for appliances here in Brazil.
That's really interesting for two reasons. One, at the online event that we attended last time, we did get some interest from Sao Paulo. But the other is that in Mexico, where we have a fantastic partner who we were introduced to by DIT, I think the gentleman who is the owner of the partnership has actually been knighted for his services to British exports or imports into Mexico of British products. and we met him on a trade mission, and he and his team have really embraced Cashbox, and I visited with him several times, and we visited a number of states. And one of them has actually moved ahead and done something, and that's Mexico State, where I think they've just bought their second 100 cash boxes. And they've had elections and things, and I think they've got entrenched with the permanent staff, the permanent secretaries and so on. So that's worked. And I can see how, I know there are other states, they all going at different speeds. And I know there are other states who, when we went and visited them and I showed them what Cashbox was all about, they were very, very engaged and really got it. I know there are going to be other states that come along when they've got their economic problems and their pandemic all out of the way, and the new staff are in because they've had elections again. So I can see there's a parallel there. And I can imagine that you've got states that are going at very different speeds. I can imagine there are some that are particularly poor that might not on the surface look particularly attractive, but we know that the work that we're doing with the United Nations, we're partners on the ITU Partner to Connect program. And we know that there are some of our fellow pledgers who are going to be putting in money and resources into some of those poorest places. So just because they might be at the end of the normal commercial queue, it doesn't actually mean that our mission of helping the most disadvantaged to be connected can't actually be facilitated under those circumstances. So there's a combination of things. The people who are actually doing things right now under their own steam, the wealthier states like Mexico State, but then there are some of the most disadvantaged who are going to get some assistance, and we want to be involved in that kind of blueprint, as you were talking about. It's all about timing. If people are putting blueprints together, we want to be there to show them they don't need to. So interestingly, when the Ecuador ministry were just before the pandemic were thinking of connecting their most remote schools, and this satellite and connectivity partner approached us, they were planning to put, without blasting you with anything particularly technical, Kelly, they were planning to put in 20 megabit per second, that's the size of internet connection, 20 megabit per second internet connections into these remote schools with satellite technology. It's a lot of money to provide satellite technology for that amount of connectivity. It's about enough for 10 or 12 kids to all watch video on YouTube at the same time. And we said, you don't need that. You could have low cost satellite technology with 1 megabit per second an hour box. So then we tested the Recursos platform and proved that that was the case. We saved 98% of their bandwidth. And now they can use a very small amount of money on a very small internet connection to do the same job. So getting there at the time that you're putting the blueprint together is really important.
Yeah.
And in a way, Subtel, who are the body in Chile who've been tasked with rolling out bandwidth to schools, it's kind of a national body, and the Ministry of Education said, well, it's a bit challenging here because we've got this blueprint and it's all about bandwidth. And we're going to give people, a bit more bandwidth every year for 10 years. And we haven't got in the blueprint the Cashbox bit. So getting it in is the challenge. And we've got to work out how to do that. And it probably means doing a funded pilot by an NGO and so on. But it's all about that timing thing. If we'd been there right at the beginning and demonstrated to them, they don't need to do that. America did that.
It would have been an easy decision, right?
Yeah. In 2014, the US government decided that they'd been doubling bandwidth every year, just like Chile are planning to do, since the year 2000. And it'd been a waste of money because you always need more. Teachers, whatever you give a teacher, they'll say, oh, I can now use the internet. Oh, but I want to use it in 2 lessons today, not just 1. Oh, I want to use it for 40 minutes, not 20. So teachers are always trying to do more. Every school system in the world has got to build out more bandwidth all the time. And you just go from more bandwidth to frustration, to more bandwidth to frustration. It's just this unending cycle. And in 2014, one of the wealthiest nations on the planet said, this is not working. We've got to use efficiency. And the FCC, the Federal Communication Commission that funds connectivity to schools in America, decided then, so 7 years ago, we're going to fund the efficiency technologies, the caching technologies, and they've been doing it ever since. And yet we've still got people like Chile and other nations, developing nations, following the path that others have trodden that's failed. It's kind of crazy, really.
It is, but it's just a question of information, right? And having access, and now with somebody here dedicated in Brazil, I think Brazil's gonna find out about this at a much quicker pace than maybe other regions. I know that we had agreed to 45 minutes before, but because of the change of time, I have another meeting I need to get to. Would you mind if we just wrap up with some action items? And
Absolutely.
it was really wonderful learning about your technology. I think it's something much needed, and so if I could, I would install it in my house. but anyway, what do you think, Maria? What do you suggest would be the next steps for us?
Perfect. So I believe we could, of course, when you have that information, Roger, share with us about the local partner, and then maybe we can all get together to really trace our concrete plan on who we're engaging with, to share more information about local NGOs or organizations that might be a good fit for appliances during this process, and then we can all together have a plan to early January get started engaging with federal and state governments. How does that sound?
Yeah, perfect.
Great.
Okay.
Eh.
When do you break for the holidays? Tomorrow?
We don't break.
Yeah.
What?
So
I just started, so I'm not taking a break right
Okay.
now. I started and I still need to catch up, so it will be a little while.
Right. Okay. Well, I'll send you over some notes from this distributor as soon as I've got it, and then we
Okay.
can arrange a chat at when you're ready.
Yeah.
lovely.
We'll
Yeah,
look forward
we'll be
to
here.
meeting your
Yeah.
distributor, and we'll be here through the new year.
Smashing. All right. Thank you
Well,
so
happy
much.
holidays to you guys.
And you too.
It was
Yeah,
lovely
I'll send
meeting
over
you.
the link of the recording. But
Yeah.
as always, a pleasure meeting you, and yeah, looking forward to working together again.
Likewise. Thanks a lot, Maria. Cheers, Kay.
Thanks for your
you.
time.
Take
Many thanks.
care.
Thank
Thanks,
you. It was a
Patrick. Ciao,
pleasure.
ciao.
Goodbye. Happy holidays.
You too. Ciao.